Greetings, Photoshopping-hours. My name is Tom Green, and I am a mighty fireworks wizard here with my mighty fireworks wizard wand that I'm going to wave over my computer, and all of your Photoshop will turn to fireworks. Not really. Hi there. I've been asked by Brandon to sort of come in and talk to you a little bit about considering using fireworks in your everyday workflow. And it really is a wonderful tool. And as I pointed out in the first part of this series, it's a prototyping tool, and it really does allow you to go straight from Photoshop into Fireworks to the web. It's literally a straight line and a very short timeline, which makes you more efficient. In this article, what I'm going to do, or this video podcast, what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you how you can move from Photoshop to Fireworks to the web with a CSS prototype. And then I'm also going to try and explain some of the little gotchas that you'll encounter along the way. So let's get started. I've got a typical Fireworks project open here, but this is a Photoshop page. And it is set up in such a way that I've got 3 columns, as you can see. There are multiple layers here in the Photoshop document. I've got a couple of effects here. If you go to the main, you can see that there's a drop shadow and a stroke around that image. There's a stroke around this image. All kinds of guides in here. And lots of text. Lots of text. So we'll just assume that a client has asked for some ideas, and you've got an idea and you think this is the one that's going to work, and you want him to see it on the web. So let's do it. So you save this as a PSD document that maintains everything. You're quite familiar with that. And then over to Fireworks we go. So we'll just click on Fireworks, and I click the open button, and I'm going to navigate over to the file that we just had opened. There it is, right there. And you can see it shows me a little preview of it. And I click open, and it's not going to just open the file. It's going to ask me to make some decisions. And the first one is, what size do I want? This is the size that you set it at. I don't think I want to touch it. If I had any questions, I would ask you about them before moving forward. And the resolution issues, 72, 100, what do you want to use, Mac, PC, that sort of discussion. Also, when you're resizing this thing, constrain the proportions, duh. Now, the real decisions that you have to make are right here in this pop-down. There are 3 main decisions. I don't even want to deal with custom settings. Maintain layer editability over appearance. And I think this is the one you really have to go with every time. That way, all your layers come in as straight content, and if there are typos or effects on the images, or images are missing, or something like that, you can fix it. Maintain the Photoshop layer appearance. That one, all that does is bring in your layers and sub-layers almost as flattened images. And you really can't do anything with them. And flatten Photoshop layers to one single ugly massive ball of JPEG gooness. No, don't think so. So we're going to maintain layer editability over appearance. And I want to bring in the guides too, because you threw in the guides, and obviously they're there for a reason. Click OK, and the file opens. Now I'm going to come over here, pop it up to 100% so I can see what I'm dealing with. And as you can see, did anything change? No, not really. It's all there. Now, a couple of things that I want you to pay attention to. Notice that the layers all came in intact. Okay, so the layer order did not change. This image here, me, in the main, as you can see, has a Photoshop live effect attached to it. And if I click on it, these are the live effects that move from Photoshop to Fireworks. Drop shadow, inner shadow, outer glow. You can see these. Now, I can add them, or even better, I can subtract them. So if I don't want the drop shadow, I can get rid of it, just like that, see? Or I can put it back. I can even change it if I want. Your call. If you don't want the stroke around the image, get rid of it. If you want the stroke, there it is. Now, if you are using some of the whacked out third-party filters from Photoshop, flatten it down, because they're not going to move. Just these Photoshop live effects are the only ones that you can pretty well guarantee will move intact between Photoshop and Fireworks. Click OK. Now, a couple other things that I want you to pay attention to. There is a Pages feature here, and what I can do here is if this is going to become a multi-page site, I can actually add pages and build off of it. And I can take all this stuff here, stay at the header, and then there's a line down the bottom here. And I can put that in the footer, and if that's to be on every page, then what the heck, I'll throw that on a master page, and I don't have to be constantly adding it. So it makes it more efficient for me. So let's get this thing ready to go out onto the web. Now, first off, I got a problem. I got a typo right here, and this is where you never want to flatten anything. So I want to just basically change that and that. There we go. So now I'm a lecturer and a teacher, not a teacher. The other thing I want you to be aware of is that, remember, we're dealing with the web here, so if you're using some of the wackier fonts that are out there, or non-traditional fonts like Garamond and things like that, you may not be able to use them on your web page. So be aware of that one. If the text is spelled correctly, everything's wonderful, then flatten the text in. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to prepare this for output to the web. And the first thing I want to do is just make sure that everything is where it's supposed to be. So I'm just giving it a quick run through. And you can see that as I roll over everything, it becomes live, which is kind of neat. Yep, it's all there. Okay. Now, I noticed here and here that these two pieces and this piece here, they all overlap. Now, if I'm going to be going out for CSS, I want to flatten these things. I want to make sure that they don't do that, because I'm going to be told that if they overlap, I'm going to be dealing with absolute positioning. And for some of the standardistas out there, absolute positioning of a div is just mortal sin. So I'm going to go to the banner layer. I've got those three selected. I can just come in here and I can flatten the selection, and now it's just one image. Now I'm going to slice up my graphics. So I'm going to select that. I'm going to select my picture, and I'm just going to select little old me. So I've got these three images selected. I want to slice them up, and when you slice up an image, it becomes almost like its own div. And I can just say, look, insert a rectangular slice. And it tells me that it's selected multiple items. Do I want one slice? No. Or multiple slices? Yeah. So I click multiple, and that's what I get. 1, 2, 3. And these are all clickable and linkable, and you can do all kinds of stuff with it. See, if I click on that picture there, I can actually throw a link in there. Now, up here, I'm going to have a bit of a problem if I go to CSS. And part of the problem is this. The text here may not show up because it's going to come in as an inline image. That's why it's a foreground image. So you get three choices in here with this. You get foreground image, background image, or just straight HTML. Now, foreground image sets the images on the web page to be inline images, which are part of the document flow. It's the default. Here, this is not good. Background image, when this type is selected, you can set other CSS attributes for background images, such as repeat, scroll, vertical position, horizontal position, whatever you want. A background image is referenced in the style sheet and is not part of the HTML page itself. So that's what I want here. I want a background image. And HTML just allows you to add true HTML code to a slice rather than just an image. So I've got these three done. Now, to do the divs, I've got to do something a little bit different here. And what I do is I create just a box, and I'm going to create a layer. I'm just going to create a new layer here. I'm going to just right there, and I'm going to call it background. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to create images that will be the divs. Remember, these are their own divs now. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to put into the background folder the divs. And what I do is I just select the rectangle tool, and I just basically draw out a rectangle. Now, what I want to do here is make sure that I don't intersect this. So I want to come out to about here. And about there. There we go. And we'll keep it out there. Okay, so there we go. And all I do is I just take a box, just like that. Just create a box. And I'm going to take this rectangle, move it into the background, and I'm going to call it call 1. Okay, so that's the first column. And we're going to do the same thing with who is this guy, how to reach him, and what has he done lately. So I'm just going to take a box, draw it out, and it just goes where it wants to go. Oh, there we go. We'll call that call 02. You can name them whatever you want, but that's kind of the name I wanted to use. Now, if I go to View, Guides, Show Guides, the guides that I wanted to add from Photoshop would have come in. I didn't choose that option, so I'm going to add another box here. And I'm going to call it, whoops, call 03. And I'm going to pull that up here. And finally, I'm going to add one final div right here. And I'm going to call it call 04. And now that I've got the column in, I'm going to throw that into place. Well, it's already there, so no big deal. And I've got it all done, and I want to make sure now that all of my columns have no fill, and I notice that I've got this one filled, so I'm going to make that 0 fill. There we go. And we'll just keep going through it, making sure that we have no color inside these divs. Just want them invisible, that's all. Yep, there we go. Okay, now we're ready to go. So then I can just simply File, Export, and I can export CSS and images. And I'm going to go to a folder called PS Example. I'm going to call this page Index, because that's kind of what you name these things. I want CSS and images. Options here allows me to create an external file for the CSS, so this is good, so that if there's a coder involved, he's going to have a CSS style sheet to work with. I can choose all the pages in the document or just the current page, and because I don't have an images folder, it's going to ask me, do you want one? The answer is yes. And then I export, and I got 2 that are overlapping, which is okay. And if I come in here and just keep, there we go, there's index HTML, and there is the page. And as you can see, it's set up exactly the way it was in Photoshop. Now, I'm going to tell you right now, this is kind of ugly. Okay, this is ugly, ugly, ugly CSS. Just to prove it, I'm going to go over to Dreamweaver, File, Open, and I'm going to come over to this folder, open up the index.html, which was created, and you can see there's the code. And if I come to the design view, it looks pretty ugly. And if I open up the CSS, this is what I like about this, is that it's all there. So the coder can now take this design and change the CSS and change the design and do all that. And really, like I said, this is a prototype. This is kind of what it will look like, Mr. or Mrs. Client. And if you're happy with it, we'll really make it rock and roll. But it's not a hard process to go from here to here to here. So there you go. There's a very quick way of getting your Photoshop images out onto the web. In the next installment, we're going to talk a little bit about the relationship between Fireworks and Flash. Now that one's going to drive the active Toots guys over the wall. Catch you later.